For me, it was just a moment where I wanted to be heard, the 26-year-old said of her mental health issues. Savannah Chrisley talks about the emotional moment she swallowed an entire bottle of pills to avoid addiction. Chrisley Knows Best alum, 26, appeared on the latest episode of Doug Bopst's Adversity Advantage podcast and talked about navigating the public and ignorance that contributed to some of her mental health issues, including depression. There were things that took me to an all-time low, and finally I got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. It was once when I was 15, and then again when I was 18 years old. And then when I was 22, I finally started going to therapy, he said. I was only at the age of 22. Go to therapy, I can't do this alone. Chrisley then recalled her previous suicide attempts at the age of 15 and recalled the moment she took an entire bottle of painkillers. Despite being on many pills at the time, Chrisley claimed she never struggled with addiction, he said on the show. I think for me, it was just a moment where I wanted to be heard, and I was so afraid to be honest about things that I had issues with being like, I just want to be heard. I think it's the biggest thing for me because I've never been kind. And I think because addiction runs in my family, I've always been very conscious of it, and I don't go down that road, he continued. I love it. To think that I have a strong mindset. I don't do this and I won't do that. This isn't the first time Chrisley has publicly discussed her mental health issues. When mental health and addiction awareness advocate Patrick Custer interviewed her on his Unlocked podcast, she talked about her suicide attempt. I don't really have a life-death experience, but I tried to kill myself, so maybe that was my life-death experience, he said in the May 2023 episode. But for me, it was more like a cry for help. Chrisley said it happened when he was about 15 years old, and while she wasn't entirely sure of the timeline, she believes it was around the time her family began filming their first USA Network reality series. It's so crazy because when you go through so much trauma, I feel like your mind just blocks it out, he explained. I also feel like maybe I had side effects that affected my memory, but it was all really a blur. I remember waking up in the hospital and my parents were there talking, he continued. Already at that time, I remember that I lied to the doctors because I didn't want to be in the hospital. Chrisley also claimed that there was nothing wrong with me, it was just a bad moment.